Warning! This episode of the No Ticket Podcast contains spoilers for 2008's Twilight. If you haven't seen it, pause this episode, go watch it, come back and join us. Okay, on to the show.
You're impossibly fast and strong. Your skin is pale white and ice cold. Your eyes change color. And sometimes you speak like you're from a different time. You don't go out in the sunlight. I know what you are.
Say it.
Vampire.
Are you afraid?
No.
This is the skin of a killer, Bill.
No ticket.
Hello, and welcome to the No Ticket Podcast. My name is Ryan Pardee.
Did you hit record? I think you did.
It says it on mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, you can start now.
And I'm Joe Strong.
Should we? Okay, hold on, let's just do it again.
No, keep all of that in, man. This is
All right, keep it all in.
yeah.
On today's episode, we're celebrating Valentine's Day like it's 2008. We're getting moody, sparkling in the sun, and quivering with intensity. That's right, you romantic goth freaks. We're talking the first film in the Twilight Saga, Twilight, from 2008.
Ha 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 ha. Just kidding. Sorry.
I was trying to think. It's like I can't really do like a Pattinson or Stewart impression. Well, we'll see. We have a lot to. Twilight is directed by Catherine Hardwicke and written by Melissa Rosenberg, based on the book by Stephanie Meyer. The film stars Kristen Stewart, Robert Pattinson, Billy Burke, Taylor Lautner, Anna Kendrick, and Gil Birmingham.
Before we get to the synopsis and talking about the movie, I'm sure the voice came through loud and clear, but we have a special guest on the pod today. It is my beautiful wife, Katlyn Berggren. Hello, my love.
Hello. Yeah. Hi. My name's Katlyn. I'm excited to be here. The only thing I guess I have to say is ready to hold on tight, spider monkeys.
Hell yeah.
We were watching it the other day and she goes, I'm going to say that on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you did, babe.
Thank you.
Joe, do you want to give us the synopsis for Twilight?
I would love nothing more.
Let's do it.
All right. High school student Bella Swan, always a bit of a misfit, doesn't expect life to change much when she moves from sunny Arizona to rainy Washington State. Then she meets Edward Cullen, a handsome but mysterious teen whose eyes seem to peer directly into her soul. Edward is a vampire whose family does not drink blood. Citation needed.
They're vegetarians.
And Bella, far from frightened, enters into a dangerous romance with her immortal soulmate.
Steamy.
Oh, it is.
Joe, this movie was your idea. Caitlin loves this movie. She's wearing a Twilight shirt at this very moment.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to go first? Let's just somebody jump in. How was the rewatch for y'all? Caitlin, we'll start with you since you are our guest. How's that, baby?
Yeah. It made me want to watch the rest of them. I would say rewatching this, I realized I've based a lot of my personality now and growing up on Bella Swan. I
Hell
did
yeah.
when the movie first came out. I was a big Hot Topic kid, and they had all the sick merch for Twilight. I had her bedding, which was unintentional. And then I also had this really sick jacket I think it's from the second movie. That was from Hot Topic. I had a huge crush on Edward Cullen, but realizing she's a book lover, she's an introvert. She never liked going to prom, and she loved the rain. She doesn't like the rain, but she likes the rain. She loves Edward. So she says she doesn't like anything wet or cold, but I don't think she knows yet. So
I'll refrain, but I was gonna say, why? Because she gets wet and he's cold, so she does like wet, and she doesn't really doesn't realize it yet.
Well, I was gonna say she's wet for a cold one because like
Yeah.
isn't
Yes.
that what,
Yeah.
like she?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry.
No, you and I
well,
were both there.
she ends up because so by the end of the movie she like ends up telling her mom, you know, I actually like it here, and she's like, oh, is it because of a boy? And it's because of Edward, and so she loves the rain now. And so, you know, Miss Arizona is now Miss Forks. She loves Forks, Washington. She loves the rain. But I just rewatching it, I was like, oh wow, like, you know, moving to Portland, I was wanting to be somewhere rainy and green, and there's books here. It's you can be an introvert if you want to, and being emo and moody. I just think it was kind of very nostalgic for me rewatching it.
Yeah, it was fun to watch it with you. I was mostly caught up with all the haircuts in this movie, but like to have you like quoting the stuff and like getting excited about the parts coming up, like it was fun to see that.
Well, so I didn't even think of that because like you're from Reading originally, right, Caitlin?
I'm from Reading, not a rainy like town at all, and so seeing like Forks, Washington, at the time I didn't know it was an actual town, but now like I haven't actually been there, but I'd love to visit. But Portland is a lot like that. I mean, a lot of the shots were near Multnomah Falls,
Right,
and actually like in the gorge, so like right outside of Portland, because it's Oregon. Washington's right next to Oregon, so it's basically the same aesthetic.
It was filmed in like the Portland area. I looked that up, kind of.
Yeah, they stayed in Portland and like drove up through like off the 5 to like where the little town in Washington.
Right. I did clock there is one of the establishing shots is of the Columbia River Gorge, right?
Yeah.
Like at one point.
Yeah, they're playing baseball in the gorge, and there is a shot where you see Multnomah Falls like pretty clearly, like the big waterfall with the bridge.
I was like, oh, that's where we got married, out in the gorge.
Right. Is that's not like the bridge we went over like when you guys got like when her and her dad are driving into town? Is that like, I mean, I know there's probably there's several bridges that go over the Columbia River, but
yeah, I am not sure. There's a lot of bridges like that, especially when you cross Washington on the 5 like that way, like, and you go to like, or you like pass all the towns that have the big flyers that say like Twilight filming location on them.
Sure.
But yeah, the whole gorge is littered with bridges like that.
Yeah. No, Joe, what was your thoughts on the rewatch of it?
Okay, so like my relationship with these movies is pretty interesting because like so when this movie came out, I was in my like freshman year of college.
So wild. I feel like that's so crazy.
I was 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no. Okay. I actually wanted to ask that. Yeah. Like, so, so like, I remember when this came out, obviously, since like, you know, being like that age, like, I feel like Ryan, like, you can probably speak to this. Like, you know, it's like we all kind of like made fun of Twilight and saw it as like this like incredibly silly thing. And, you know, although I do think we watched it at the, I think maybe when we were living in like the Mission or something.
Okay, so we watched it once, I think. I think we like borrowed it from the girls across the hall. I think and we were cleaning the house, if I remember correctly. We were cleaning up, and I think you put it on, and I think I said, Joe, I can't watch this.
Right.
But I think we did finish it. I think we did.
Right. And so like, yeah, like it was kind of like this like ironic kind of interest in it for like kind of like a long time for me. But then I can't remember what it was. I can't remember if it was just because of it was either like the pandemic and I was bored, or I think maybe like a podcast I was listening to was talking about them. And I watched like all of them a couple years ago, and I was just kind of like fascinated by them
in an unironic way this time.
In an unironic way this time. And I mean, like, because like the other ones, like, I mean, there are things I like and don't like about all of them, and I guess since we're only talking about the first movie, I don't really want to get into. We probably shouldn't get into spoilers, but
don't worry, gentle listener.
yeah,
We will get to the other two later.
I legitimately stand by I think that the last two, where like they do like the last movie thing where it's like a movie kind of like split in two parts.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that one is like actually good. Like I actually kind of stand by that. And then so watching this one now, like I did a couple days ago, I definitely have like a lot I want to talk about, and I definitely think it is like a flawed movie, but I don't know, like I did like it. Like I weirdly have nostalgia for it now, even though like I didn't even like it when it came out, but like now that it kind of just like reminds me of that time, I think like that almost makes me like it more now. And I mean, this obviously doesn't hurt either. Since this movie came out, we all love Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart, like who have become like kind of serious actors. And honestly, like that's my biggest thing, like watching this first one is like I think Kristen Stewart is like legitimately like kind of great in this movie.
Yeah.
Like I think she's actually giving like a pretty like it's almost like too good. Like I think like the script for this movie is like kind of lacking.
Yeah.
But the choices the two of them make and the chemistry between the two of them,
it makes it.
Yes, absolutely. And like so anytime where it's just like the two of them on screen, like I think it's actually like pretty electric and kind of like even like elevates the material.
Yeah.
In a way. So I had a really, really great time watching it.
Yeah, well, so when you texted me and then followed it up with the Paramore song and said unironically this soundtrack slaps, that's what Caitlin's been telling me forever.
It's so good. Even so, the first one is really good. The second one's even better.
The soundtracks to all of them are like
all of
really
them
like
slap. And they keep like the same aesthetic going, like Death Cab for Cutie and Paramore and Band of Skulls. Like
Bon Iver is
Bon
on
Iver.
one. Yeah.
They've got Muse. They kind of got that like moody, like vibe going with the soundtrack. And I like that they're committed to it. Like they stick to that vibe throughout all the movies.
Well, I like that like it's I think this is so clearly like a like kind of Spotify like music streaming thing where it was almost like movies still had to like kind of care about like you have to have like a really cool soundtrack, especially if it's a movie about like a moody teenage girl and like that's who it's like marketed to. Like you have to have actual like, good music on it, and like I really like that, and or like the music on the soundtrack is something a girl like Bella Swan would listen to.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that goes for all the other ones. Like Tom York makes an original song for
Which
the
is,
second one.
Right.
Like, that's like crazy. Like that's how big a deal like these movies were.
Well, it's also interesting too because this was something where you could like now I think when you watch a movie, if the song already isn't popular or if the artist isn't like a million streams on Spotify, like no one's gonna put it in a movie. But like, you know, and not like Iron and Wine and Death Cab or like, you know, not like they were not big names or well-known names, but they weren't like, they were still like pretty like indie, you know, or like a Hollywood kind of scene, it almost felt like. So it was it's like pretty great that you can still have that kind of soundtrack and kind of like a mixed thing where you can still discover stuff where like, I don't know if that would be something you could do now.
Fun fact is Robert Pattinson actually has a song in the first movie. It's the cafe scene when they're going prom shopping and then like he rescues Bella from a group of men that are gaining up on her. And then she goes to meet her friends, and they're like, "No, you go and do your own thing with him. Like, you got the hotties like hanging out with you." So they go eat dinner, and like in the background is his song, and I think it was like one of his last recorded songs before he like became a bigger actor.
I did notice that while looking at the like all like the song credits on like the end credits of the movie. I did clock that, and I thought that was funny because this. I mean, I guess like at this point, like the two of them had both like been in movies before. Well, I mean, like Kristen Stewart has been like acting since she was like a little kid. Like she's in like Panic Room and a couple. I think like right before this she was in like Into the Wild, and I guess like Pattinson is in like one of the Harry Potter movies. Like right
he's in
this.
Goblet of Fire.
Right, he's like the hot popular guy who gets like killed at the end. Right.
Yeah.
And so it is like, I don't know. And I guess like part of it is just like living in a post Twilight world. It's just like kind of like funny to think about them as not being Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson. What did you think of Twilight, Ryan? I think we haven't really gotten like your take on it.
I thought it was fine. This is one of those movies that I think I've seen mostly through osmosis.
Yeah, sure.
And the only thing I remember about the other ones going forward, like the things I remember about this is everyone goes, "Oh, Shark Boy grew up," talking about like Taylor Lautner. I remember Michael Sheen is in the later movies, which I thought was funny because he's in the Underworld movies, and I like Michael Sheen. And I remembered the fight scene at the end of this movie. And vague bits of the movie. But what really struck me is how much of like a fucking time capsule this is.
Yeah.
Like the haircuts and the clothes and like it just
the fashion is
yeah, like you could smell like the caramel stuff that like girls used to wear and like the axe and like fucking like it was just like that was my visceral response to it. It was just like, man, I had that haircut. You know, like I think watching it again as a 35-year-old that doesn't have a haircut like that anymore, I actually really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed watching it with my wife who like loves this movie, made it like a lot of fun. I don't think a lot of it holds up as far as like, I think you were saying like bits of it are like lacking and some of the special effects are pretty bad. And, but like as a whole and as a point in time, like I get it. And like, I really did like it. Like this is something like I would watch with our family, you know, and would be excited to do that because I think like I'm glad it existed. And you know, Katlyn saying like she like based her like whole personality, you know, on Bella. Like we all like I did that with like Tim Kasher, you know, like we all fucking did at that time. So it's fun to like see where that comes from, you know, and I'd rather like my kids see this and be like a moody emo kid than like a shitty like, you know, Bitcoin bro. So like I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I just like felt like it was I don't know. It, at the time, probably like wasn't like a healthy thing to be like into, but like now it seems like pretty like quaint and like kind of the direction I would want people to go in.
You can't go wrong with vampires and werewolves. I mean, every girl who is like into Fern Gully and Thumbelina loved Twilight. Every girl who loved Twilight with vampires and werewolves now loves those fantasy smut books. Sarah J. Maas and Court of Thorns and Roses, all of those series, which is like all fairies and romance books. I mean, I didn't read Twilight because at that time I wasn't like a huge reader, but I would read it now because it's just the vibe with the type of writing. It's a little bit more of a younger reader novel, but still like a lot of the like steamy stuff, like I wouldn't like imagine a like younger reader reading, but the books I read now are considered young reader books. And they're not, I wouldn't say appropriate for like a middle schooler. But maybe not. I don't know. I probably would have enjoyed it in middle school.
Joe, do you know these books? The Court of Thorns and Roses and all this stuff?
I don't. No.
It's exactly what Katlyn is saying. It is like the Twilight for the 30-year-old Twilight fans that like
Lovers, yeah.
we're teenagers at this point.
Grew up and needed that Twilight vibe, but for an older audience.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think I'm picking up what you're.
It's the same premise. It's a mortal girl who meets a fairy. He's 1,000 years old and she's 19 and courted by this old fairy man, and ends up turning into a fairy herself. So it's literally the same plot line.
When they turn it into a movie, we'll have to do an episode.
Yeah.
When
and so like it's funny you mention all this because like one thing like I was kind of thinking of while watching it like this time, and like obviously there's all like the weird kind of like Mormon stuff like going on like in like the subtext of this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I was kind of like thinking about that, and it's like, well, like, you know, if you think about it in a certain way, it's like, how is this any different than like kind of like a Jane Austen book? You know what I mean? Because like those books are all about like people who want to bone super bad but can't because of whatever circumstances, right? And this is just kind of taking those ideas and using, you know, supernatural and gothic things to kind of make it literal. Which
Stephanie Myers was Mormon, so she grew up Mormon. So
I don't think the Mormon stuff though is like the undertones are there, but I don't see it being super like overpowering. I don't really, you know, it just feels like, you know, high school kids getting in touch with their hormones rather than like leave room for God. You know what I mean?
I guess. Well, I guess I don't mean like kind of like in that sense. I just meant in like the weird sense that like they're like this like a big family that like lives together, right? Even though they're like there's a
like
little
sister,
bit of, like a sister,
yeah.
Which like I did think like that was like one of the funniest parts of the movie is like when Anna Kendrick is like explaining to her, and she's like, yeah, you know, it's like this like rich like family, like they're all like together, but like they're all kind of related, and it's just kind of like, yeah, like what are you gonna do? And it's like, wait, like if that happened, if there was like a family like that at your high school, you would just be like, wait, like what? Like,
yeah, but Joe, that kind of like family relationship happens in Lost.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, how they're like all orphans. Like the excuse is that they're orphans, so it's okay because they're not actually related. Like Carlisle adopted them.
Exactly.
And it's okay that they're all dating each other, even though they're considered brothers and sisters, technically speaking on paper.
That bit of the Mormon bit is not so subtext, I guess.
Well, and I guess I'm almost like thinking of stuff that happens in like the later things, but like again, like not to spoil anything, but like how like the bad guys are basically like the vampire pope is basically like the bad guy of like the later stories. So I think it's more. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Maybe that's also just like reading too much into it too.
I don't know. Maybe it's like Carlisle, like Sam Smith. Is it Sam Smith or is it Matthew Smith? What's the Smith guy? The alien rock?
The alien rock? What?
Yeah, that's the whole Mormon thing. The guy who like
what?
Oh, Joseph Smith.
Smith. Thank you. Yeah, it's like an alien rock, right? It's kind of like a mix between like Christianity and Scientology.
Yeah. Yeah, so much like crazy stuff happens in like the later ones.
One thing that I thought was really funny was when Bella goes to the house for Cullen's house for the first time, and she sees all the graduation caps, and the flimsy excuse that the longer we can pass as like regular people or students or whatever, the longer we can stay in a town. I just thought was really funny. It's like, this guy is like 200 years old. Why the fuck does he still want to go to high school? Like, he doesn't need to do this. Like, he could just like, they could just exist in the town and he could like get a job or what fucking ever, or not.
Well, she even points it out in that scene where she's like, wait, so you just go to high school like over and over again? Like, that sounds like horrible. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, and why keep the hats? Why keep that? It's like a weird trophy almost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just can't. Well, okay. One thing I thought
you couldn't have a love story if they weren't in high school. Like, you know, there's that.
The things that like they think they do need to explain versus like the things they don't.
Yeah.
Like the whole like the baseball scene is so okay. Well, so first of all, the baseball scene I would argue is maybe the most like mid late 2000s sequence like ever captured like on film.
That's the whole thing with this movie. This movie took place at a time like after Iron Man or like around the same time.
Yeah.
But it feels
same year as
right. But it feels so much earlier.
Yeah.
It feels so much earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the speed ramping and like the like the super choppy editing and like the Dutch angles.
The Dutch angles are
like,
everywhere. Yeah, it feels like a
the budget was a little bit lower than Iron Man.
Yes, yeah, no. Well, that's the other thing too. It's like this is a pretty like modestly produced movie. I would say, but it gave me big. Did you guys ever watch like Smallville when you were younger?
Sometimes I was an OC guy.
No,
you know what that?
No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, this has a guy from the OC in it, right? Cam Gigande as the villainous James.
Oh, right.
James, yeah, the nomadic vampire.
Yeah.
It looks like the budget for it was 37 million.
And it made 407.
Yeah, it grossed 407 mil.
And like the movies get like kind of like subsequently more kind of like lavish and expensive looking like after this one, which is also like very funny. Like to,
a little bit.
Which is
Wait, I want to go back, Joe. Before we move on, I want to go back to the baseball scene. What was the explanation that like the fact that like they can only do it because the thunder of the bat can only be covered by actual thunder?
Right, like that's just what I'm saying. Like the fact that it's like, well, like obviously that's what everybody's going to be like asking questions about and like the whole. It's like, wait, like so what do they do? Like how do they do this? Like how do they just pretend to be 17 and like nobody ever asks questions about it?
Well, except they do, and they like. It's sunny. They can't be here. They like get called out every time the sun comes out.
That's even crazier. That's like, yeah, and like, but I don't know. Yeah, the baseball scene is like with like the Muse song and like just like the speed ramping and like the really like the wire work in this movie. Like
yeah.
Is so like that's why I bring up Smallville, which is like the TV show about like Superman in high school. Like it's very very similar to this, where
the
it's
running
just, like,
in that show is pretty rough.
Yeah. Oh, dude, the part when she jumps on his back and he starts like running is very funny.
You know, we give movies, we often say like this movie knows what it is, this movie doesn't know what it is. You know, I think this movie it's so serious and it takes itself so seriously, and I think like in a way like that almost like benefits this movie because everyone does kind of like everyone does kind of treat it like it's Shakespeare, you know. But that's not like a bad thing. Like it's still like as dramatic and as like moody and all this stuff as it is, and like it makes it kind of goofy. The fact that like it's kind of goofy, but everyone's on the same plane, and is still like everyone just is treating it as Shakespeare. I think like gives it a little bit of that charm that I think really like benefits this movie tonally.
Well, that's kind of what I meant by like saying like I think like Kristen Stewart is really like giving like she is treating this like it's like based on like a true story or something. Like she is really like kind of there is like this unpretentiousness to like kind of the treatment of the source material that I think really like the only person I would say who is like kind of winking and having fun in this is like maybe like Anna Kendrick, but like that could just
still
be
pretty good.
Like and she's really like, I think but again like even she perfectly knows like the tone. Like I found all of like the super like high school stuff in this kind of like really like endearingly kind of cheesy.
Everyone was so nice. They all got along pretty well.
I kind of like that too. Like I like that like she kind of makes a bunch of friends like super easily and actually has like a pretty good relationship with like her parents. Like it is kind of avoiding like the cliches of this type of story. in a way I feel like it almost doesn't get credit for.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Why were we all so grumpy?
I did want to shout out also Billy Burke, who plays Bella's dad. I think is really just
dad.
is just so like a Hall of Fame like dad performance.
Yeah, Caitlin, how did you feel about Billy Burke?
Drinking the vitamin R. He's
Yeah.
got his Rainier in hand. He's the protective dad. Kind of awkward when he first sees Bella again. Doesn't know what to say to his teenage daughter because he hasn't seen her in years. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think your dad is hot.
oh my God. Yeah. Like super hot.
I like the shout out to Rainier. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, like that's okay. They actually did like shoot this in the Pacific Northwest or like, someone knew enough to like be like, that's the type of beer he would be drinking. Like,
not only that, they were tall boys, which is like very specifically when you get a Rainier, they are tall boys. Like, I mean, you can get like a 12 pack, but when you get them, you get a tall boy Rainier. Like, that's what it is. So, like, even that part of the production was pretty, like, I appreciated it.
He's wearing his flannels, sitting on the recliner. I would say when this movie came out, Robert Pattinson was the crush, but now I would say it's Bella's dad. And then I realized Ryan's a lot like Bella's dad, so the types line up to me.
Hey,
now.
yeah.
Went from grumpy emo vampire guy to dad.
Yeah. Girls go for Edward Cullen. Women go for Charlie Swan.
Yeah,
chief of police of the Forks Police Department. Okay, both since we're just both of her parents are played by people who played bad guys on 24. I just wanted to. I just noticed that while watching it this time, which I thought was very funny.
Love it.
So earlier you said Edward. I can't remember what you said, but you said he was far older than what he actually was. But he's only 109.
I said he was 200. That's my bad.
Yeah.
That's a better age gap. That is a better age gap. My apologies.
It's a little bit more appropriate. I would like to say something I don't know if I caught on to it when I was first introduced to Twilight, but most of them have special abilities. Like Edward can read thoughts, but you have to be in close proximity. Alice can see the future. Alice is one of his siblings or adopted siblings. Jasper can change your mood. Jasper is Alice's partner. Carlisle is special ability is like super good at being a doctor. And Rosaline, which another side fun fact, Rosaline, the actress is married to I forget the actor's name, but he was in Vampire Diaries. They both played vampires around the same time, but they're married now. Anyways, side note. But her special ability is super strength. And not all of them actually have special abilities. Before they turn, they had to have like a key like actually turned into vampires to get the special ability once they turned. And Carlisle's wife, what's her name again? She doesn't really get introduced really well in this movie until Bella meets her.
Emma or something?
Is it Renee? Is it Renee or is it it's either Renee or Esme based on something that happened later.
Esme.
Is it Esme?
Elizabeth Reeser.
Esme Cullen. Yeah. She doesn't have any special abilities. So, and that's something I didn't catch on to because I was like doing a little bit of a deep dive before this recording. And I didn't catch on to not all of them have special abilities. I just thought they all had like vampire superpowers.
I think he says that in the movie.
Yeah, he says like we had to have like I don't know if he actually says it, but he like is explaining to Bella, like, Alice can read your thoughts and Jasper can change your mood. And she's like, well, what can you do? And she like figures out that he can read her thoughts when they're in the greenhouse on their field trip. She like kind of clocks that. She's like, why did you ask me that? I can't remember what he asked her. But she's like, oh, so you can read my thoughts. And she also kind of clocks it too when he saves her from that car crash, that he like has some sort of special ability.
Yeah, I would say that one like really gave it away.
Yeah.
Right, it's kind of implied like he's maybe like a little like fast, even for like a vampire. He's
that's his thing. It's, yeah, like he's got
incredibly fast.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I did just want to shout out I don't know what is it? Alice. I like Alice. That's like a very, again, like that's so like of like its time, like that haircut.
That haircut, that flip. Yeah.
Yeah.
That pixie cut flip. Yeah. I wanted that haircut so bad. But
yeah.
Instead you had yourself a duck butt.
Yep.
For that's for all the scene kids out there listening to this right now. Side note, our niece reached out to Katlyn the other day and asked her if she had any of her old scene clothes and like,
oh hell yeah,
duck butt haircut stuff. I thought it was really funny.
I did not, but I would have given them to her if I did.
Because like all that's like coming back, right? Like it's like we're basically like
full
kind
circle.
of we're coming into like kind of like nostalgia for like when this movie was made, basically.
Yeah. Right there.
Oh, I did want to shout out Gil Birmingham, who plays the Native American dude in the wheelchair.
Yeah, I want to talk about him real quick. So when Edward's at the house and then the werewolf dudes like swing by, he is like being like dropping like mean shit at Bella, like she's supposed to get it, I think, or like give away that they know. Maybe he is like giving her like mad like passive aggressive shit, and it is like wild.
Wait, how? I didn't notice that.
Yeah, when they like pass each other, like they're leaving the house and they're going into the house to go watch the game or whatever.
It makes sense though, because if they know that Bella knows the Cullens are vampires, then he would be suspicious that Bella knows they're werewolves. And that's not something that's known throughout the town.
Right.
So that I could see him being like kind of like, does she know? And is she gonna say anything to Charlie? Is she gonna tell anyone? But she doesn't know yet. She has no idea.
Right. I just thought it was like damn, dude.
Until they go to the beach. And Jacob is telling her about it.
Yeah, but I don't think she then like clocks at their werewolves or whatever. But I'm just like,
but that they like have history.
Yeah.
Right. But I was just thinking like,
and I mean,
man, he like is dagger eyes at this chick right now.
And I mean, to be fair, it takes her almost 50 minutes to figure out that he's a vampire.
Yeah, we all would have fucking got it within 20.
Yeah.
Well, okay, one thing, the scene when she is doing like her like internet research is like so funny, where it's like where she literally clicks on like every single like other culture's like word for it, where it's just like kind of like, wait, like what do they call that in like North America? That was very funny.
Also, okay, so like after the research and she like confronts him. And he's
tell me,
say it.
The scene in the movie, that was like what all like the trailers were, and like all of like the
vampire. You're a vampire. Say it.
He's like, just say it. Okay, Batman. I know it. Okay. You're Batman.
Okay. Do you think this movie got him the role as Batman? Because I sure as shit do.
I see it. He does the voice. Say it.
It's like, the same. It's the same character.
Batman voice. Yeah.
I hadn't even thought of that. That is like a great point where it's like you're kind of like, who are you? I'm Batman. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, if rather than being a man dressed as a bat, this is a sparkly kid who
he is a bat.
In other ways, could turn into a bat. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Even though I guess like they don't do like the whole like turning into a bat thing. Although
he's the bat that drinks your blood.
Yeah. And then even better. I think is like the scene like right after that, like the scene of when he goes into the sun for the first time, and
That's
just
what I'm
like
it's so dramatic too. It's crazy dramatic.
where he's just like, this is the skin of a killer,
Skin of a killer, Bella.
and then she's just like,
You're
It
so
looks like
sparkly.
it looks like diamonds.
What do you mean of a killer? She's sparkly.
Also, one thing I had is like, if you take a drink every time Kristen Stewart bites her lip in this movie,
Yeah.
like you will like die.
Dude, that
Yeah.
scene, that whole episode of Parks and Rec where they're talking about with like Will Forte and they're talking about putting Twilight into the time capsule, and it's like a whole thing, and the super Christian lady is like, "Don't put it in there because like devil, blah 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 blah." She goes, there's a point where she just goes, there is so much quivering in the and I was like watching this movie and I'm like, oh my god, there is so much quivering in this movie.
Oh, it's especially in like that whole like before they start talking, like there's like that when they're sitting next to each other and they're both just like looking at each other, and it's like they're both like, yeah, it's like they're almost like it's like they have it's like a contest to see like who can do like the most. Kind of like,
Also, there's no blinking in this movie. Like no one blinks.
yeah.
Which I thought was
Well-
added to the quivering. They're too busy quivering, they can't blink.
Well, and then there's like the one scene when he finally does talk to her, where like she sits down and he just goes like, "Hello." Like the way he says it is just
And then
like,
he just keeps staring at her and be like,
Yeah.
what, bro?
Be-
The whole
because-
time.
because he's trying to keep it together. Like it makes sense if you think
Yeah.
about like kind of like what's
He's not
Smells
keeping
so
it together,
good.
Joe. He is like following her and like watching her while she sleeps. He is not
He's a
keeping it
stalker.
together.
because right. Well, I would argue right because like he I did forget that it's like he does like kind of want to kill her.
Yeah.
which does make the whole like
Hey, he does get a taste of her blood at the end of the movie, so
And has to
Yeah.
be stopped.
he has his
Right.
little fix. I would say that scene feels like the most erotic scene to me, where
I had that written
he's-
down too. Yeah.
where he's sucking the blood out of her wrist, and
Her eyes
she's
are
like-
crossing.
her eyes are all crossed, and
Yes.
she's just like, her body is like twitching, and like her tongue is out, and her eyes are crossed. And Carlisle's like, Edward, stop, and he's like, I can't.
And he's all like kind of like, oh no.
And no, I'm gonna suck her dry.
Yeah, like the shot, yeah, him sucking on her like wrist and then like cutting to her like crossing her eyes, yeah, is one of the most like sexual things I've
Yeah.
seen.
Is that not how Mormons have sex?
Yeah, right. See,
Is that not?
exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I've never, you know.
No, you don't know how you don't know, Brian.
I don't know how they do it. I
They
figured that's
lay
what
on
it
top
was.
of each other, and they have someone jump on the bed.
Oh, I think I've heard that joke.
Oh yeah, it's
Or is that a
It's
real
not gonna
joke or is that a
be
thing?
oh yeah.
No, that's an actual thing.
soaking. It's called soaking, right?
It's called
Yeah.
poking. They have someone
Yeah.
jump on the bed, and they like lay on top of each other.
Y'all, that is
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Much.
so.
There's a lot of quivering in that too. I would imagine. You know.
Yeah.
They have Twilight on.
Okay, so like one thing, like has he? I don't know, because I've never read the books. Like has he ever kissed anyone before? Because the scene where they first kiss, like it is like
He's
he
had
is,
200
kind of-
years. Yeah, he's had like or 109 years to like really get it together, and doesn't seem to have done that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like that scene where it's like we've never used like the kitchen before. It's like, really? Like you've never even like I understand like they don't need to eat, but it's like you really like never even like he's a doctor. Like you've never had like one
Not
of
in
the
the
other like
500 years you've been alive. You haven't even like been
had someone over for dinner.
interested.
Yeah.
Yeah, in making a meal, like. But they know how to make Italian food, so
Yeah.
for somehow, even though they've never.
Also,
used the
Italian food
kitchen
is like
before.
there's a lot of garlic in Italian food.
I had that same thought. Yeah.
Well, we've talked about Nosferatu, so I don't know if it's like a couple vampire movies, but like
Yeah.
this movie kind of just like spits in the face of all vampire anything.
Sure.
Mostly into the fact too, where like there's no contracts. Like I will give you like shiny, sparkly skin, but where's the contractual obligations to anything?
Exactly.
There's no real estate deals happening here, and I just like I'm not 100% convinced that really makes them vampires.
That is true. Yeah, no, like they really they get rid of a lot of stuff. Although I definitely did think of Nosferatu a lot, just in terms of, I guess, like in terms of like just the
Color
them
palette.
both being so like horny like for each other in this, and just
So
like
they got that
constant,
part
like,
right.
Yeah.
well, and like I mean, we're having fun right now, but it's like I do think like like the fact that like the two of them actually like dated or started dating during this movie, I do think like kind of actually gives those scenes like kind of like even like as silly as like the dialogue can be, as when they're both like looking at each other, like you really can kind of feel the like
That was real bonding.
Yeah. And I mean, like, come on, can you blame like either of them? Like either too? Like,
Yeah. I saw when I was kind of doing more research on fun facts of the movie that Henry Cavill was actually Stephenie Meyer's first choice when she was like thinking about a movie adaptation of the book. But by the time they started, could have had Superman as Edward. But I think Robert Pattinson was the right choice.
oh yeah, I think that would have been like, first of all, it's crazy to think about him as like the same age as them. Like he just seems like he's a different, like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Is he really?
Yeah.
right, because I actually it's funny you bring that up, because like there was just like a thing about like when they did Casino Royale, he was one of the guys they wanted too, but he was like, since he was only like 21 or whatever, it was like kind of like that's like way too young. It's just like funny to think about how it's like you could be considered for James Bond and like a dude who's supposed to be like a junior in high school. Like at
That's
the,
crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, although, and I guess like Pattinson is like 20, I think is around the same age
As the character?
No, I mean in that he's a little bit older. Like he is like 21 or 22.
Right.
And Kristen Stewart, I looked up, like literally was 17 turning 18 as like they filmed this movie. So she actually is like basically like right on in terms of, I mean, maybe like, you know.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because this movie definitely the high school kids look like high school kids. They don't look like 30-year-olds playing.
They do.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would say the only people that maybe don't look quite high school age are the Colons, but that makes sense because they should probably
stop going to fucking high
be
school.
pretending. They could say they're college kids and they're doing online courses and they just happen to live in Forks.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe
You
that's the
didn't-
vampire thing, though. Maybe that's the vampire thing because, like, aren't like vampires always looking for younger people? So, like, maybe that's where that is.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Count Orlok. Like,
Yeah, they might not sign
younger
contracts,
people.
but they definitely like go for the young.
Yeah, I mean, just like the Cullens are very funny.
I like them. I like them, and like, good on them for like trying. You know, being the vegetarians and being good stewards, and like, you know, I don't know, maybe like Dr. Cullen, like, how does he pick who he does? Like, does he ask them first? Like, what the hell? I don't know. I don't understand how that whole thing works necessarily, but like, good on them for trying to be like good vampires and not like these bad guys that we haven't even really talked about.
Oh yeah.
the trio, the three nomadic vampires that
The chocolat vampires.
and can't, like, when they see Bella, that becomes like James, which is one of the nomadic vampires, like fixation. They hunt their own and they go from town to town doing their own hunting, and I think it's cool to have like that introduction of not the colon type of vampires that are like good, trying to be good and not, you know, they're not killing humans, and I would call them vegetarian vampires. And like then the introduction of the nomadic vampires, and I like that it kind of like sets it up for, you want to see more of the universe, like you kind of want to see more of like, you know, where are the other vampires and, you know, how do they live, just because like there's more of them, there's not just the Colons, and how did they start, like what is their society that they kind of like come from.
Right. I was just gonna say, like, I forgot, like, kind of, yeah, how little, like, world building stuff there was in this one, where it's like it really is just kind of like about like their relationship. Like I was saying, like, it's like she doesn't even really figure out that he's like a vampire until like halfway through, and then like he kind of explains like a little bit of it, but like I guess it's really like the other ones where that like gets into like kind of all the crazy vampire stuff and werewolf stuff.
Yeah,
it's all
Yeah.
kind of everybody else giving the lore. The Colons don't really. They just kind of, it's the lore being built around them, which yeah, you're right. That is interesting. I like how the antagonist vampires are introduced, and I like how like you really do think it is the Colons doing it. They do a pretty good job at that for this kind of movie.
I'm a huge fan of Eddie Gathegi, who plays the leader of like the nomadic vampires.
From X-Men First Class.
Yes, X-Men First Class. I think he's going to be in the new Superman movie too.
Yeah, Mr. Terrific.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly know him from he's on For All Mankind, which is like the Apple TV like space race show, which is like fucking incredible. Like, but yeah, I always just like seeing him pop up, and I like their whole, again, like, it's like this movie is so like 2008, especially the way James is dressed. I feel like with like the like,
but the rest of them look like they're from like Doctor Sleep, which is like kind of funny.
Yeah, another good vampire movie.
Yeah, I just kept thinking like Chocolat, like that's what that's what they reminded me of, and I don't really know why. Maybe it's because I've been wanting to watch that movie. You're not
With
fucking
Johnny
French, Pete. Just delightful.
Yeah.
It is, right?
Yeah, I do wish, and I do think this is one thing that I think like the later movies get better a little bit. I don't know. I just wish like the vampire on vampire action in this one was like a little better, just because like
it's a little hard to see.
Yeah,
it's a little hard to see. It's like, I don't know, and just like the wire work is just like, I don't know. Like there's like one part when she's like running away from James, and like he kind of like jumps over. There's like that one shot where he kind of like jumps over her, and it just like
in the ballet studio.
In the ballet studio.
Yeah.
Do you think part of the pitch for this movie was like, all right, stay with me, high school vampires, but like the action, we'll kind of do like a crouching tiger, hidden dragon thing for like a few, like it'll be kind of like that.
Well, I think yes, in that like basically like every movie that came out after like The Matrix and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came out, that like every action movie was just like kind of like, well, we gotta have people like flying around on like wires, like apparently that's what people like.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you giggle.
Like it's like a Fatboy Slim video.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, what if Christopher Walken was in this movie?
I mean,
you should have been there at the pitch.
I should have been there at the pitch meeting.
Not
it's not like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's like the Fatboy Slim video, and we're gonna have Christopher Walken in it.
Exactly.
Hear me out, Christopher Walken, vampire dad. That's it.
I could totally see him as like,
vampire uncle.
Uncle.
I guess he'd be a little old for Carlisle, but
he could be like his brother. I would buy him as a brother.
Yeah.
Or like Carlisle's uncle, maybe.
Yeah. And he was the one who turned Carlisle, because how did
Yeah.
Right.
Stephanie Meyer, where are you at?
But
Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson have both said that they would revisit the Twilight movies. Yeah. They would come back to it.
That would be so funny if like now they're both like such like weirdos. That would
Robert
be incredible.
Pattinson doing like the high pitched Robert Pattinson voice.
Well, they like look like they do now, where she has like her like short like blonde hair and like tattoos and shit, and he's all like they're both all like weird like like Indian for only and like like, I mean, I guess he's Batman now, so I guess like he's not like that.
Well, he's a Batman.
Kind of same.
He is. Yeah.
He is
He's our sitting Batman,
he is our sitting Batman.
right?
But he's the Batman from the indie world.
Right. Exactly.
He's my most favorite recent Batman.
I mean, I can. Yeah. It is like super funny that like that kind of like shows like how much has like changed because like I remember when this like I was saying about like amongst like people like me like when this movie first came out and it was like so like made fun of.
Yeah.
It's like such a testament to like how much has like changed to like kind of like when this movie comes out and like people like me who were like that age at that time who like this movie isn't really for we're like kind of like making fun of it and being like kind of unfair to it. But then like cut to like 10 years later or like not even 10 years later when like Pattinson is announced as being the new Batman and like we all go like let's fucking go like it's like like so and I think that's cool. Like one thing I do think that's what's interesting about this movie is that the fact that like both of them kind of used like the success from it to get a bunch of weird, interesting stuff made kind of after the fact. Which is like, I don't know, which like they didn't have to do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, it brought other people along, right? That probably wouldn't have been as inclined. Yeah, for sure. What about a Rian Johnson remake of Twilight?
See, I was like wondering this because like aren't they? They're making like they're doing a new Harry Potter, right? Like they're making like a TV show.
Yeah,
and so like will that happen with this? Like, will someone make Twilight again?
Probably. I kind of hope not. I hope not in the way they're going to be doing Harry Potter. Like, I don't want that. I mean, I guess like the Harry Potter thing's kind of cool because that's going to be like they're going to have a longer time to do it. It's going to be a more accurate thing,
Yeah.
Totally fine. I mean, I could take a new Twilight. I don't know if I want a show, but I feel like if they're going to do it, I don't want it to look like Rivendell or some shit like that. I don't want it to just look like a gothic 90210 or Vampire Diaries. I want it to like be different. Like, I don't even want it to be like Underworld mixed with some other shit. I want it to be like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe like something like Rian Johnson did with like his Star Wars run,
I just don't think that even if you did redo it, I just don't think you're going to find people who make the kind of choices like Pattinson and Stewart do. So it's kind of like, why even do it then?
Why even try?
I think you're right. I think they would probably like cast someone like Rachel Ziegler or Jenna Ortega. I don't think that would. Nothing against them at all.
Yeah,
I just don't think it would work with someone like that. Well, and like, who else do you get to do that?
Well, and now it's like it's like we're too like aware of this stuff. I mean, obviously, like they made this book into a movie because like the books were super popular, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so it's like they kind of knew what they were doing, and like you said, like this comes out the same year as Iron Man and The Dark Knight too, which is really interesting to think about. That it's like that is basically like we're still kind of in like basically every big movie is kind of trying to be like one of those three movies.
Also, what a trio! Those really set up
basically the next like 16 years of like kind of like like blockbuster filmmaking essentially. Yeah.
Was 2008 the best year for movies in the aughts? Maybe then. Because of what came out of it? I
mean, it's probably the most influential.
That's a better way to put it. That's the better way to put it.
Yeah.
Man, 2008. Miss you. Come back.
I know. I was just like thinking about like, is that maybe part of like why like I'm so much more kind of like favorable to this movie now? Is it just like this like kind of like I want to go back to like that time?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I really did. I mean, fuck. Almost 20 years later, whatever, we're 17 years later, like watching this movie, I thoroughly enjoyed it more than I would have in high school or in we freshmen in college. I thoroughly enjoy it more and
100%. Yeah.
And I don't think they should here, I'm going to put my foot down. I don't think they should remake them because I think these movies or this movie in particular, because I can't speak for the other two. It's very charming. And it's very, like you're saying, the choices were made. it is an interesting it's at an interesting crossroads of where like movies came from the early 2000s to where we have them now. You know, it really does kind of sit at the precipice of change, like with The Dark Knight and with Iron Man and all that kind of stuff. So I just think like this movie being such a time capsule, I mean, you could do it as a period piece, like, you know, the 90s as a period piece, like is happening at this point now, but or the early aughts as a period piece, which is happening now, but it's such a time capsule. I think you don't touch it. I think you just let it exist as what it is and you celebrate what it is.
Yeah.
At this point. I mean, there's so many classic movies. Like they didn't need to remake Total Recall. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. You don't need to redo
I mean, that's
it,
like,
you know?
yeah, that's an example of like something they
And I'm not putting Twilight and Total Recall on the same plane. But
Sure.
like, that I'm just saying, like, if you were to redo it now, it would really have to be thoughtful, and you couldn't phone it in, or you couldn't, you know, fuck it up.
If one of the Cullen's powers was having 3 boobs, though, like that would really put this over the top. Like A+ territory for me.
Oh, dude, a mix of Total Recall and Twilight. That would be an interesting story. That'd be a good pitch.
Yeah.
Listen,
they should really
hear me out. It's a mix between Twilight, Total Recall, and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, this could have really used, like Paul Verhoeven, director of Total Recall and RoboCop and Starship Troopers.
Or okay. Well, here's the thing. What if Jim Jarmusch did like the newer versions of it? Like, it has to be like, if you're gonna redo it, it would have to be super fucking weird.
Well, have you seen Jim Jarmusch's vampire movie?
I haven't, but I know Tilda Swinton's character because she was in The Dead Don't Die. And so I've seen bits of it, but I don't think I've like actually seen it.
It's really, I think both of you would really like that. It's really good. Only Lovers Left Alive is what it's called. Yeah.
Well, I was texting you about that because I was watching something about Jim Jarmusch and that popped up, and it was like, that's the character from Dead Don't Die.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what Tom Hiddleston. Tilda Swinton.
Or Guillermo del Toro. What if Guillermo del Toro did it?
Well, I was like reading some like crazy stuff like about like, so like kind of like, you know, as like I was kind of saying, like, you know, like these were so successful, they got like tons of money to make like the other ones.
Yeah.
Apparently for the later ones, like Kristen Stewart like really wanted Sofia Coppola to direct the last one.
Oh, rad.
I could see it. I could see it.
Yeah, which I mean, yeah. Which
what are we fucking talking about? Get Sofia Coppola or Greta Gerwig to fucking do a new Twilight. Like, fuck. What am I talking about? Fuck me. That sounds great.
It's for the girlies. We gotta have
sounds great. Yeah.
Either of them do it. Yeah.
That sounds fucking rad.
Like, Bella basically is like a Sofia Coppola movie character. Like, basically, yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. Yeah.
So yeah, that would have been really funny if that had happened, especially given like what happens in the
Don't ruin it, Joe. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
Spoiler alert for Ryan.
We're gonna get there, everybody. Just relax.
Yeah.
One Twilight at a time.
Yeah.
The second one is so good. It's so good. I won't spoil it, but it's a little bit slower. But it's good in its own ways. So like we're introduced to the Cullens in the first movie. The second movie, it's Jacob's world. We're learning about Jacob and his tribe and his background, and I like that it's just kind of dedicated to that. Like it's kind of opening the lore a little bit more to have us appreciate the other side of the lore, and having us pick sides. That was the classic Jacob versus Edward. Which one are you gonna pick?
Right.
And you're like, I'm more of a Jacob girly, or I'm more of an Edward girly. Like, pick your side and pick your lover.
Team Jacob or Team Edward? I remember.
Team Jacob or Team Edward.
Joe, where are you?
Oh, I mean Edward, no question.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Team Edward, 100%. Although the second movie had me questioning, I was like, do I want to be Team Jacob? Because I mean, he's the good guy in this movie, and you kind of get the feelings of you understand Bella's feelings and the way like Edward's gone. And
Right.
I'm spoiling it already, but
Well, I will say
Yeah.
Edward is a little bit of a problematic character. Like in
Sure.
hindsight, he's a little bit of a
But you love him
bit of
for
an
it.
asshole, but sure.
yeah, that's what makes him so appealing to Bella. I mean, he's the bad boy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Bad
I
boy.
guess this doesn't really apply to this movie so much, but I guess like one criticism I would have is like I just don't think Taylor Lautner is like anywhere near
Shark Boy.
the level that Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson are. Like if like
Yeah.
Jacob was actually was played by an actor, kind of.
What if he was played by an actor?
And his wig is so bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that's my hang up on Jacob in the first movie, is that Taylor Lautner's acting, like you said, isn't up to par with Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart. And his wig is really bad. It's like, do you wear wigs? Obviously, yes.
Yeah. And just like, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know if you got my "Do you wear wigs" reference from Elijah Wood's Lord of the Rings interview, where
Oh no.
they're like,
What
"Do
a
you wear
deep cut
wigs?
nerd.
Yeah.
Do you wear wigs? No. Would you ever wear wigs?"
Yeah. There's a lot of wig action going on in this movie. Definitely.
Yeah, Taylor Lautner's is the worst.
I don't know. Nikki Reed's is pretty bad.
It's pretty
I would
bad.
say. So.
Doesn't Michael Sheen have a really bad wig in like the third one? I kind of like remember.
But that's like he's like an evil vampire though. So it's I
so
feel like that's like
okay.
it's a little different.
Yeah.
Without spoilers, does he make a better vampire or werewolf? Because I think he makes a pretty good werewolf.
Is he a werewolf? I've never seen the Underworld movies. Is he a werewolf in that?
Yeah, those movies are so good.
Yeah.
You haven't seen any of those? You've seen all 3 fucking Twilight movies, but you've never seen any of the Underworld movies?
There are 5 Twilight movies, I think, right?
Apologies.
Yeah. Yes,
Joe,
there's
I'm fucking shocked right now.
Yeah. But I do know like those also rely heavily on like the like kind of like blue-gray filter.
Well, that's what I thought
like,
you were gonna say earlier, was like talking about like the color scheme of like with Nosferatu. It was just like the blue, gray, yellow.
They really lean on that for this one.
Well, that's what the Northwest looks like, man.
It's true.
I mean, honestly, they do a pretty good job at depicting what the Northwest is like. I mean,
capturing the vibe.
You really get it with the Rainier. I mean, we live in Portland, so we don't live in like small town Washington. But like when you drive through those towns, it kind of looks like that.
Yeah, especially when it's raining.
Yeah, the Rainier is like a really nice choice.
I loved it. That was a moment, and I know we're going back to it and whatever, but that was a moment where I was like, oh man, maybe this movie is good. Like they paid attention. They paid attention to some shit. Like maybe this movie is a lot better than I'm giving it credit for.
Only a good movie would do something like that.
Now, have you ever heard anyone reference it as vitamin R? Because that was the first time that I've ever heard that.
I don't think so. But I will say, shout out to the Landmark Saloon in Portland, Oregon, because at a different time in my life, that's where I hung out all the time. And it was or is the bar, the bar in Portland that sells the most Rainier in the city. If I remember correctly, like allegedly, like it's like this honky
That's their
tonk.
claim.
It's like this punk rock honky tonk. Yeah, the Rainier would like send them shit. I think there was like a banner at one point because it was the bar in Portland that sold the most Rainier. So I just think that's a cool thing. If you're ever in Portland, go to that spot.
You know where to get your vitamin R.
Yeah, you know, you get your vitamin R.
I can't let it go. I love it because you're not getting it replaces your vitamin C or D, whatever the one that comes from the sun.
I think it's D.
D. Yeah.
One of those vitamins.
It did make me like be okay with living in the Northwest for a little bit. I was like, okay, this is cool. This looks cool.
This is a vibe.
It gave me like a different perspective on like a place that like I look at all the time. I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm here.
Yeah, when we're driving out on the coast and like the fog is in the mountain range, and immediately every time it makes me think of Twilight. And that's why Ryan didn't know this, but every time I see that, I do the ha 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 ha, which is like the classic like Twilight sound relate like connection. And now he knows. He didn't know before until we watched the movie.
And now I know.
meant.
And now every time we drive through the gorge, which if you guys haven't done it, if you've never been up here or if you really haven't like driven through the gorge, like do it. It is probably the most beautiful spot
It's
in
so
the Pacific
beautiful.
Northwest. Like, but yeah, and every time we drive there now I'm gonna have to. Is that how it goes?
That's pretty great.
Is that how it
That's
goes? Yeah.
good. It's beautiful.
Oh,
Well,
thank
much
you.
like Bella Swan is like won over by the majesty of the Pacific Northwest.
She likes wet cold things now, baby.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. She likes one wet cold thing.
Oh.
Sorry.
That's
Okay.
that's that scene where she like touches his hand. Is like you're going back to that scene where her back. They're in the woods, and she's telling him how she knows he's a vampire, and she's like, "Well, your skin is cold," and like she's like reading off all these things. He's like,
You're super strong. You're super fast. Like you seem to like not like going out in like sunlight. Like, what am I missing here?
just the way that scene is done is just like fantastic. Like fuck it, like you are along for the ride. If you've made it to that point in this movie,
Yeah.
you are along for the ride, and you are just letting that current take you. It's awesome.
Okay, one choice I really like in this movie too is the when she finally puts it together, there's like that like shot where it's like they're doing like the weird like silent movie thing where like
Yeah.
they're both in like kind of like
On the
old-timey-
couch.
yeah,
On the
where
French couch. Yeah.
which they show again in the end credits as like the title basically, where it's like
Sepia
where it's like where he's like
tone.
he's biting her neck on the couch and they're wearing like 1920s clothes or whatever.
Yeah.
That was fun.
I love those shots are good.
Okay, that's really fun. And then like one specific scene like I also wanted to talk about is like I really do think like the last scene of this movie is pretty good of them at the junior prom or whatever it's
yeah.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
Well, because that's a fantastic Flightless Bird American Mouth is a fantastic Iron and Wine song, which is what plays in the
Right.
background of that scene. And I just think like I don't know, like the way it's shot, we finally get like a little bit of like warm light in this movie with like
Yeah.
the way it's like lit. And I just again like the chemistry between them is so good. And the way it ends where it's like he kind of like dips her and it looks like he's kind of like gonna bite her neck.
She's like,
Yeah.
do it now.
Yeah. And then but then he just like kisses her on the neck where it's like this is like hot. You can kind of see it's like I can see why like this became like a sensation, especially like amongst like 14-year-old girls or whatever.
Right.
You watch
Right.
that scene, it's just like, okay, I get it.
I get it. Yeah. Maybe I'll go to prom now.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they end it on like kind of an evil note, though. Like I know
Yeah,
we've talked about like not
Victoria,
setting
the
it up.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Victoria, the antagonistic vampire, just killed her lover. Edward just killed her lover, James. And she's like looking through the window and attended prom because she's tracking them down. She's walking down the stairs and then it rolls into the credits.
It's very Marvel-y. It's very kind of like what we were just
Yeah.
talking about. Like,
Right,
Yeah.
but like not annoying.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
like,
like
oh.
one where it sets it up where it's not, it doesn't feel like you could end it there. You don't need a
Sure.
second movie. I don't know. For some reason, that to me feels like it could end there, but you don't want it to. I didn't think like that was annoying like I normally do.
Well, and it's just I don't know, and then it's just like over. It's like they don't belabor it too long.
Yeah, maybe that's
and
why.
then-
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
like Radiohead starts like playing, then
Right.
so it's just like you're just kind of like, oh,
Even though it's like that, even though
Here
it's like
for
in
it.
slow motion when she's like walking
Mhm.
away and it's like super dramatic and it's like some fucking like Blade Queen of the Damned thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
Which I think is like, oh, this movie has a lot of that. This movie has a
Wow, yeah.
lot of like, that's what I'm saying. Where like it was made, like we're talking about, like it was made at the same year that Iron Man and Batman came out, but it feels so much older than that because I think
Mhm.
like a lot of the cues are coming from those kinds of movies.
yeah.
But that's not to say like it's all bad or anything negative about it. It's just like it's just a interesting thing that's the vampire movie kind of at the time that was like maybe that was like the vampire movie kind of like trope or like thing, how you knew it was this kind of movie, which is just like dates it a little bit more than like trying to keep up with that rather than changing the trope.
What do you think it is that like we just had like kind of like vampires, like, because I also like I realized this, that like 2008 is also the same year that the first season of True Blood premieres, which is basically like just kind of like a more like R-rated version of this. Basically, it follows like so many of the same things, and I just think it's so interesting that it's just what was like in the, and obviously this is based on like a book that comes out a couple years before this, but it's just so funny to think about that, like like there was just something in the like collective unconsciousness that was just like
there was maybe since that first Blade there was like a 10 there was like a 10-year like everything was a vampire movie, you know, you've got Daywalker, the Underworld movies, you've got this.
The Underworld movies, all three Blade movies come out before this. Queen of the Damned comes out before this. I
mean, really, this feels like it was kind of the tail end of the vampire thing, right? Is there another kind of like big one?
Well, like I said, like True Blood like starts at the same time, and then I think is the Vampire Diaries like after this as well?
Yeah, I guess it would be, but it's around the same time. Isn't that like the
but like that's probably made because of the success of that and this, though,
but then it kind of ended. They weren't around for like necessarily like forever.
I mean, there's Hemlock Grove. I don't know, but if that was as popular, though, with Bill Skarsgård. I don't know if that was as popular, though. And it was a little bit later.
That's what I mean. It just like feels like that trend kind of waned. Like there was like a definitely like hot period for the sexy vampire action flick.
Right.
I hope we're getting into another hot period of sexy vampire movies, because with Nosferatu, like people, it's the same bit. And I'm interested to see in 10 to 15 years how we feel, like just like with Twilight at the time. I didn't think it was bad acting. I mean, I thought it was the hot new shit and thought it was the same thing with Nosferatu. Like I'm interested to see how folks feel about Lily Rose Depp and her acting compared to Kristen Stewart's crossed eyes and
way better
lip biting, and
it's way better. Like
it's way better, but like better. You know, people become more like the critics become a little bit more opinionated as time goes on.
Sure. Right. Remember when this came out, like people like kind of like made fun of like her and Pattinson like a lot, just being like, oh my god, like these are like two of like the worst like actors like I've like ever seen, which is again is like super funny to think of. Kind of like what you were saying is like funny to think about now it's like
maybe we are at a vampire renaissance around too, because like I'm fucking pumped for Sinners.
Sinners looks fucking tight.
So good. It wasn't I guess that was Coogler's like Blade script, or like a pitch for like a Blade script that he had that got rejected, so he turned it into a
really.
I think that's what I heard, that Ryan Coogler like presented it as a Blade script or something like that, as a Blade script, and it got X'd, and so he turned it into this.
I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, which if that happened, fine, because this movie looks fucking dope, and I'd rather have this movie than like a Marvelized version of it.
Yeah,
I'm here for it.
Anyone else have anything else to say about this movie?
I think when he like saves her from like the, you know, group of like guys, like there's like that part where they're in the car, and their interaction there is like so funny, where she's just like, I don't know,
say something else.
How did you know I was here? First of all, like, how does she, like, he just happens to be there, like on the island that they went prom dressing on, that they had to take a ferry to get to.
Exactly.
Like, I'm saying, his behavior is very problematic. He is not trying hard enough to like, oh, I'm trying hard enough. Sorry, I didn't like drink your blood, but I am gonna like do all this other weird, crazy shit.
Okay, yeah, that's what I had written down. Where he's like, you have to talk to me, like you're out, like, you know, he's like,
she's the one that just got fucking. Like,
she's like, maybe you should put your seatbelt on, and he's like, like you put your seatbelt on.
Put your seatbelt. Yeah, that's what. That's like so.
He's like I like that he laughs because like he doesn't need to put a seatbelt on. Like
Right.
I won't die, so you should put your seatbelt on.
Yeah, like so it's like it works on multiple levels. So it's like there's that, and then like there's just something so funny about like the whole like here, like just like talk to me. It's like, well, I think you should do this. So it's like, well, that's stupid. Just like immediately.
After you've had a traumatic thing, no, but I need you to calm me down now because I want to fucking drink your blood and you know what they were thinking. It's all bad. It's like, God, man. Like,
I mean,
I get like that's where I get like people are like, oh yeah, Jacob's a nice guy. Like I get it. That's where like that is like, oh maybe team during that scene I was like, oh maybe Team Jacob probably might be the way to go. He ain't gonna fucking like watch you while you sleep.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm excited to see what his flaws are in the next movie.
Yeah.
Oh, are they numerous? Is there lots of?
Well, towards the end.
Oh, he becomes a real. He becomes worse than that?
His choices are a little bit questionable.
Ooh. Wow, you really have to be a fuck up to like.
I feel like I get the second and third one confused. I think because
good thing we're gonna watch them, Joe.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, yeah.
Wait, why do you get them confused though?
I don't know. I guess just because like the last two stand out so much more for me. But yeah. So I'm excited though. I think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
Stay tuned next week. Katlyn, you're gonna come back for all these Twilight.
I mean, maybe. Yeah.
You're gonna have to.
I'll be there.
You're our resident expert.
Yeah. I started rewatching the second one before we actually watched the first one on Thursday. Because I was like, well, I was trying to watch the first one at work, and then I was like, oh, we're gonna watch it anyway, so I'll start watching the second one. And I remember a lot more from the second one than I did the first one. Just because there was kind of a little bit more, I don't know, the scenes were more memorable to me, but I don't really remember the rest, honestly. Like the other movies I don't remember as well. They'll probably come back to me when we watch them again, but yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Nice. Well, I'm fucking excited. Katlyn, where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, Instagram. That's where I'm at. Honestly, any Instagram, Blue Sky.
Blue Sky. Katlyn's funny on Blue Sky. What's your Blue Sky?
All of my social media handles is just Cake the Cat, like cake as in the thing you eat, and then cat is KAT. That's where you can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Hell yeah. And where can we find your Twilight fanfic?
I'm not going to tell anybody about that yet. It's a little bit more, I would say more PG-13 for this show.
That's behind a paywall.
Yeah, that's behind a paywall.
That's for the Patreon.
Yeah.
Maybe for the Patreon, maybe for the next episode, I'll offer up the Patreon.
Well,
hundreds of we finally get people reaching out to us.
Finally.
That's what I'm saying. It's all Katlyn's fanfic.
Are you guys actually going to do that, or what was that like a joke?
I guess they'll have to find out for themselves.
Yeah, send us a message on Instagram, the No Ticket Pod, if you want the link to the fanfic, or if you even want it to exist, because we'll have to, But yeah, follow us there. The No Ticket podcast.bigcartel.com. We've got shirts and stickers and mediumly written reviews with bad grammar because I read Kerouac and I can't, and I'm dyslexic. But we've got stuff there, so go check that out. That'd be really fun. We have our email is thenoticketpod@gmail.com. You can find me, Ryan Pardee, on Letterboxd, and we will keep you posted when Joe gets a letterbox.
Right. I'm like a Colin, man. I don't like, I don't like to. I'm not tied down.
Yeah. My love, Caitlin Rose, thank you so much for doing
Yeah,
this. This
thanks
was
for
very
having
exciting.
me on. I will talk about shiny, sparkly vampires any day. It's a love of mine, so I appreciate letting me join in on the fun.
Yeah, this was super fun. I'm really glad we did this.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
great.
Alrighty.
We'll do the, what is it? New Moon? Is that the next one?
Mm-hmm.
New Moon.
We'll see y'all next week for New Moon. How about
Yeah.
that?
Stay safe, spider monkeys.
Thanks y'all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.